All right, so get this. Picture a scholarship program, right? One designed to support Nigerian academics going abroad for further studies.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What happens when those scholars, quite a few of them, decide not to come back?
That's a tough one.
Well, that's the issue that Nigeria's Tertiary Education Trust Fund, or TETFund, is facing right now.
Yeah.
They've actually gone and suspended this foreign scholarship program. We've got a bunch of articles here digging into the reasons behind this decision, and we've got reactions. Some academics are obviously disappointed. Some actually see it as, well, maybe a necessary evil. And then you've got the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU. They've got a whole other take on this.
What's really interesting is that it's not just about, like, one scholarship program. This whole thing connects to these broader issues like brain drain, the economic situation in Nigeria, and the, like, big question of how to build a top-notch education system. One that not only supports local talent, but also attracts, global experts.
Okay, so before we dive into all that, maybe let's break down the basics. What exactly is this TETFund, and what was this scholarship program all about?
So TETFund, it's an intervention agency. They provide extra support to all levels of public tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
Okay.
Like, think universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, the whole shebang.
Gotcha.
This scholarship program in particular, it was designed to sponsor academics to go abroad, get their master's, doctoral, even postdoctoral degrees.
Right.
The thinking was equip them with these advanced skills and knowledge, and then they'd come back and, use it all to benefit Nigeria.
Sounds like investing in the future, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then TETFund hits the brakes, decides to suspend the program, and what are the main reasons they gave? A good number of scholars, 137 to be precise, they just decided to stay abroad after they finished their studies. They signed a bond to return.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So this bond system was meant to kind of, guarantee a return on that investment, make sure the scholars would come back, share all they'd learned, and help Nigerian institutions.
Right.
But with so many not coming back, it definitely raises questions about how effective that system actually is.
Yeah.
And it highlights this whole brain drain problem, where skilled people leave their country for, well, often for better opportunities, better pay, the deal.
Yeah, and now you've got lecturers in Nigeria, folks like Aliyu Abdullahi from Jigawa State University. He was all set to apply for his PhD abroad, and now that door is slammed shut. He's understandably disappointed, and he's pointing to the tough economic situation in Nigeria as a big factor in why scholars choose to leave.
It's a tough situation, for sure. You've got valid arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
Some see this suspension as, like, a necessary evil, a way to stop this brain drain and focus on making local institutions stronger. But then you have others, like this lecturer from the University of Ilorin, who didn't want their name out there. But their argument is that studying abroad, it promotes, sharing knowledge, professional growth, exposure to what's happening globally, which, in the end, they argue, benefits Nigeria.
Yeah.
Even if some stay abroad, they say a lot, come back with valuable skills and a real commitment to helping Nigeria develop.
So it's like this push and pull, between giving individuals opportunities abroad and strengthening the entire education system at home.
Right.
And then, just when you think you've got your head around these different views, here comes ASU with an opinion that might just surprise you.
Yeah.
ASU, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, they're the ones fighting for the rights and well-being of academics in Nigeria.
Right.
You'd figure they'd be all for scholarships that give their members a chance to study abroad, right?
Yeah, totally.
Exactly. But, and here's where it gets interesting, ASU is actually backing TETFund's decision to put a stop to this foreign scholarship program.
Wow.
Yeah, their president, Professor Emmanuel Osadek, his argument is that instead of spending money to send scholars abroad, that money should be used to improve Nigerian universities.
Interesting.
The goal. Make these institutions so good that they attract international students, turn the tide, so to speak. And Osadek, he points to something that's often overlooked when ranking universities, the fact that there are very few foreign academics teaching in Nigerian universities.
Right.
He says having a diverse faculty, people with international experience and perspectives, that's key to boosting a university's global standing.
I see.
So ASU is basically pushing for this long game plan, build up what we've got here at home, even if it means giving up some things in the short term. But can investing in Nigerian universities really turn around this brain drain, make them attractive to international students?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there are definitely some obstacles we got to consider. Nigeria's history with funding education, well, it's been a bit rocky, and ASU has been pretty vocal about that for years. So, yeah, while this scholarship suspension might free up some funds, it's going to take some serious commitment from the government to really shake things up in higher education.
But it goes beyond money, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
There's the whole infrastructure issue, equipment that's outdated, the lack of funding for research. All these things make Nigerian universities, well, less competitive globally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's play pretend for a second. Imagine the government steps up, really invests in upgrades, top-notch labs, competitive salaries that draw in the best talent, Nigerian and international. That would be a total game changer.
It would be a huge statement too, you know?
Right.
Showing that Nigeria is serious about becoming a hub for knowledge and innovation.
Totally.
But let's not forget those 137 scholars, the ones who didn't come back.
Right.
It's understandable why TETFund is worried about getting a return on their investment.
It's a valid concern, no doubt, and it does make you wonder how effective that bond system really is, you know?
Yeah.
The one meant to guarantee scholars' return after studying, maybe it needs a serious overhaul, or perhaps there are other, more creative ways to encourage scholars to come back.
Yeah, instead of just a financial penalty, maybe there could be some kind of mentoring program.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, connect scholars who are studying abroad with like established academics back in Nigeria, build that sense of community and support.
Yeah.
Or maybe even create opportunities for them to work on research projects that benefit Nigerian institutions while they're still abroad.
I like that. Those are great ideas. It's about creating a win-win, you know, where scholars feel connected to their home country and see the value in coming back, sharing their expertise to help it grow.
Right, right.
Exactly.
And maybe part of the solution is focusing on like specific departments or research areas within Nigerian universities, make them super attractive to both local and international scholars. What if Nigeria could become a global leader in, I don't know, some specific field, drawing in experts from all over the world to collaborate?
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's a smart approach. Find those areas where Nigeria can excel, really invest in world-class facilities and programs, and boom, Nigerian universities are suddenly on the map. It's about creating these, like, pockets of excellence that can then spread, you know, have a positive impact on the entire higher education system.
And this brings us back to Professor Osadek's point about, you know, getting foreign academics to teach in Nigerian universities.
Right.
He was saying that having a mix of local and international faculty, it's not just good for global rankings, but it also encourages cultural exchange, builds international partnerships, creates a more like dynamic and connected academic community.
And that's where those investments in infrastructure, research facilities, and competitive salaries become super important. You got to create an environment where international scholars feel valued, supported, you know, a place where they're inspired to contribute. Imagine Nigerian universities becoming like hotspots for visiting professors, postdocs, even students from all over the world.
It's ambitious for sure,
Yeah.
but not totally impossible. And while this whole TETFund decision might feel like a step back right now, it could actually set the stage for something much bigger, a more robust and sustainable higher education system in Nigeria down the line.
It's a gamble, that's for sure. But if the government seizes this opportunity, really makes those necessary investments in Nigerian universities, it could pay off big time.
So the big question, the one we keep coming back to, is this suspension going to actually lead to more investment in education in Nigeria? Or is it going to widen the gap between local and international academic opportunities?
And let's not forget about the individual choices. Those academics in Nigeria who are trying to figure out their next steps.
Yeah.
Do they stay and help build up their local institutions, even if it means facing challenges and limitations?
Or do they look for opportunities somewhere else? Maybe driven by better resources, higher pay, or even just, I don't know, the excitement of something new.
Right. It's a personal choice, but one that has some pretty big implications for the future of academia in Nigeria.
Feels like we're at a real turning point, doesn't it? This whole TETFund thing, it could spark some positive changes or, well, it could make things tougher. It's like we're all waiting to see which way it goes.
Yeah. No crystal ball here to give us the answers, but we can, you know, explore some possibilities. Let's just say, hypothetically, that this suspension actually lights a fire under the government and they start pouring money into Nigerian universities. What would that look like?
Well, ideally, I'd love to see research taking off, facilities getting upgraded, salaries becoming competitive enough to attract the best faculty, maybe even see Nigerian universities becoming like the go-to place for international students.
A total makeover for higher education. But we have to consider the other side of the coin, too. And what if the funding just doesn't come through? Or what if it's not enough to really move the needle?
That's a worry, for sure. We could see that gap we talked about getting even wider, local universities struggling to keep up, and more academics in Nigeria feeling like they have to look for opportunities abroad.
And that could create a vicious cycle, right? The best and brightest leave, Nigerian institutions lose even more ground, and it becomes even harder to attract talent and funding. But even with these different scenarios, there are like layers to think about.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of layers?
Well, for example, even if there's more funding overall, the question is, how's it going to be divided up? Will it be used strategically to target specific needs, to build up those areas of excellence, or will it be spread out so thin that it barely makes a dent?
So even with more money, some institutions might benefit more than others, maybe even making things less equal.
Exactly. And on the other hand, even if there isn't a huge increase in funding overall, there's still room for smart, targeted investments. Maybe the government could focus on developing a few key universities into like world-class institutions, attracting international collaboration and expertise in specific fields.
So it's not necessarily a black and white situation. There's room for strategic decisions that could lead to good things, even if the budget isn't huge.
Exactly. There is a lot of gray area here, a lot of potential for both progress and, well, some setbacks. Ultimately, the future of Nigerian academics is going to be shaped by a whole mix of things: political will, economic factors, and the choices made by individuals and institutions.
And that brings us back to you, our listener. Because in the end, the direction Nigerian higher education takes, it's not just determined by those big policy decisions or funding allocations. It's influenced by the individual choices of thousands of students, lecturers, and researchers.
Will they choose to stay and help build up their local institutions, maybe become part of a new generation making real changes?
Or will they go looking for opportunities elsewhere, driven by, well, all sorts of factors: better resources, higher pay, maybe even just that pull of experiencing a different academic culture?
There's no right or wrong answer here. It's a personal decision, but one that has a big impact on the future of Nigerian academia. And maybe, just maybe, this whole TETFund decision, controversial as it is, will get people talking, spark a real national conversation.
A conversation about what higher education in Nigeria should look like, involving not just the policymakers and administrators, but the academics themselves, the people whose lives and careers are directly affected by these choices.
It's a conversation that needs to happen, one that honestly acknowledges the challenges, explores creative solutions, and maybe, just maybe, leads to a stronger, more thriving academic environment in Nigeria.
And as you keep following this story, our listener, we encourage you to think about the role international experience should play in how Nigerian academics develop.
And what can be done to ensure that those who do choose to study abroad ultimately come back, share their expertise, and help shape their home country's future.
Because, as we've seen, this is a complex issue with no easy answers. But by having thoughtful discussions, by looking at things from different angles, and by questioning what we think we know, we can all play a part in creating a future where Nigerian academics thrive, both in Nigeria and on the global stage.
And with that, we'll leave you with one final thought to consider. If Nigeria could figure out how to create a system where its best and brightest consistently return, sharing their skills and knowledge, could it become a model for other developing countries facing similar brain drain challenges?
It's definitely something to think about as we continue to explore the world of global education and those complex connections between individual goals and national progress. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and keep those brains buzzing.